Good day, learners, students, listeners all over the world. For our Today Economics online class, we shall be looking into the concepts of YSIC and their functions respectively. Though these are economic symbols, but to some people, to some naive or to a layman, you may just perceive them as alphabet, but they are not alphabet, they are symbols. Am I communicating? Now, to be explicit with us, we have the concept of income, savings, investment, and consumption. The concept of income, savings, investment, and consumption. Now, the first one is income. We have number one to be income, income, which we represent by our alphabet Y. Is that taken? This is the symbol that nullifies income. You will discover that in some classes ago, I was able to explain what is meant to be income in my online economics class. And I told us, or I schooled us, that income has to do with the earnings of an individual's firms, of an individual's, yes, from sales or services. So, and I was able to nullify that there is difference between income and revenue. Income is a term that is used by an individual, while revenue is a term that is used by business units or government. Is that taken? So that is that for that. Now, when we mention income, like I said, that income may be defined as the earnings of an individual, is either from sales or services. Now, we now have different types of income which I've schooled us about. We have income from rent, from wages or salary, from interest, or profits, etc., etc. And I also discussed about difference or other forms of income, where we have our passive, our active, and our residual income. So this is the function of our income. We have our Y is equal to, is a function of SIC. The interpretation of this write-up is that our income is a function of savings, investment, and consumption. These are three major things that you can do with your income. When you earn your income, maybe a civil servant who works or a laborer who works, right, for 30 days, you are entitled to salary. Or maybe you work for weekly, or maybe for 2 days or 3 days, you are entitled to wages. Now, these are things that you can spend your income on. Is either on savings or on investment or on consumption. You either save your income or invest it or consume it respectively. Is that taken? So to those of you that are writing WAEC or other forms of exams, you may be asked to state some numbers of importance of income. You may generate your assumption or your answers from this model. We have our Y is equal to F, which is a function of savings, investment, and consumption. Is that taken? So that is for our income. Is that taken? And our income do normally have a correlation with savings and consumption, and there is a graphical approach to that, so which I'm going to discuss with us later in my next class. So we also have notion number 2 to be savings. Yes, savings. Am I right? Now, our savings is represented by capital letter S. Now, what do we mean by savings? Savings are the portion or the proportion of income that are kept for future use. Let me take that again. Savings is a fraction or a proportion of income that are not spent but kept for future use. Now, you earn 500,000 monthly, so you now decided to save maybe 300,000 naira. Do you get it right? So that is called savings. And we also have reasons for savings. Our reasons for savings are also similar to the reasons why people hold money. Because when you are saving, you are holding money. Is that taken? So because there is a case study in economics called the concept of money, where we have the demand and supply for money. Am I communicating? But that's a discussion for another day. Now, when we are talking about savings, savings has to do with the fraction of income that are not spent but kept for future use. Now, what are those reasons for saving money? We have reasons, okay, for savings. reasons for savings. We have number one to be transactionary, transactionary motive. Okay, motive. Yes, people do normally save up for the purpose of transaction. Yes, by the time you have your savings, you are at liberty to purchase your goods and services at any time of your choice. Am I communicating? So you can easily make your transfer, or you can easily make your payment via check or via cash. You can do that. Why? Because of you have saved, or you have saved up before. So number two is precautionary. Is what? Precautionary motive. Okay, precautionary motive has to do with a kind of intention of people to caution their expenses in the future. When you are saving for the unknown, then we call it what? Precautionary motive. A kind of savings that has to do with emergencies or contingencies, right, is called precautionary motive. You are saving up purposely because of the situation of unknown in the future. Example, you as a father, you must to have different accounts. There's a kind of account that will be for emergency or contingencies in the future. So we also have Roman figure 3 is speculative motive. Yes, people do normally save for the purpose of speculations. Example, you work in a factory and you have the mindset of opening a kind of investment, the likes of POS business. In the future, you may decide to be saving up. Maybe you may be saving some fraction of your income for future purpose. So that is speculative motive. When you save for the purpose of investment or for the purpose of a particular cause, then we call it speculative motive. Is that taken? So those are reasons for saving. Those why students too as well, or other forms of exams, if you are writing them, you may generate your reasons for savings from this end. Now we have our savings function, right? We have our savings function. Okay, now our savings function has to do with S is equal to negative A plus by. Am I communicating? We generated this assumption or this model from a concept or from the concept of consumption. Is that taken? Now this our S connotes our savings. Is that taken? And this our A connotes when income is at zero. Is that taken? That is minus A. You can see the sign here. And we also have our B to be this our B implies marginal propensity to save. There is the temerity or the chances to save by an individual. Am I communicating? So which we can write to be change in S all over change in Y. This is the model for our MPS. There is marginal propensity to save. Am I communicating? And we also have our Y. This Y nullifies income. Am I right? Our Y depicts what? Income. Right? So our savings function is S is equal to minus A plus BY. Where we have our A, where our income is at maximum level, minimum level, and we also have our B to be marginal propensity to save as a function of change in S all over change in Y. Change in savings all over change in income. And our Y depicts what? Income. Is that taken? So that is that. So we also have assumption 3, which is I, which is investment. Okay? I. It is represented by a capital letter I. Now, what do we mean by investment? In some classes ago online, I have discussed or related with us the concept of investment. And I school us that investment has to do with the activities or the procedure of executing a business plan. When you execute a business plan, what you have indulged into is investment function. Am I communicating? Now you establish a POS business. You have indulged into investment. You open a barber shop, you have indulged into an investment. Do you understand? So investment has to do with you establishing or executing a business plan. Do you get it right? For the purpose of return or for the purpose of maximizing profit.